Okay, we got another one. Dane Cook. Big fan, man. Big fan.
Thanks, man.
In college, I mean, you remember listening to him, huh? You were the dude for a long time.
Oh, man.
You look good.
Yeah, that was.
Are you 50?
50 years old, dude.
How? You look great.
Thanks, man. You know what it is? The key? I swim every day.
You swear every day?
Man.
Like you cuss
Swim.
every day?
Well, I swear too. That's my night job. But
Okay.
during the day, I'm in the pool, man. I throw
Swimming.
on the old swim.
Cold water, warm water, doesn't matter.
I like to keep it a little chilly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get about a 30-minute swim every single day, 500 calorie burn. You get out of there feeling like a kid again.
Morning, night, does it matter?
Every morning, every single morning, get up there and get in the pool and do my thing. Get in there, ruminate, come up with the new material, and then by that night, you're working on something that you chipped away while you were just in there splashing.
So you're coming up with your stuff as you're swimming.
It's a great place to.
There's nothing else to do, I guess. Yeah, nothing else to do.
You're tethered in the pool, so you're just on a line, and it's just holding you in one spot. So you're just swimming without thinking about going back and forth.
Oh, so you're not even going anywhere.
No, it's like the first 10 years of my career. One spot and desperately trying to get.
I've talked to a lot of comics, though, and I think that's kind of how it goes. Like, you just sit there for a while, and you just grind and grind and grind and grind.
Yeah, you got to be terrified for a good 8 to 10 years.
But then you blew up in a big, big way.
I had nowhere else to go, man. It was like, I'm not even kidding you. I remember like doing road gigs, hell gigs. That's like when you're out on the road. The hell gig for a comedian, just for anybody who wants to understand. Imagine this is your job. You're driving hours for no money to a place that nobody cares that you're coming, and they don't give a shit when you leave. That's your gig for a long time.
Oh my gosh. We were talking to Nate Bargatze. He's here in Nashville. And he was like, he was in New York, and he'd be like, we'd go in there for no money, and there'd be like, the bartender would be there. Empty place. And he goes, I'd just be, giving my thing.
Yeah. You get like the bartender, some staff, and then you get a manager who never watched the show and would come to you at the end and be like, listen, there's really no cash, but we'll give you some chicken wings and some spare ribs. At
least you didn't starve.
Like, yeah. Oh, no, that's the good thing about stand-up. There was a lot of crappy food along the way. There was a lot of sparrows on the side of highways that you would partake in. But, man, it was truly one of those things that I loved stand-up comedy so much that even at its very worst, like the worst hell gigs, where I didn't think it was ever going to happen from it, it was still better and more fun than the alternative in my mind, which was just like being a dietary aide at a nursing home for the rest of my life.
Is that what the alternative was?
That's what I did for a couple of years before I went full-time stand-up.
We'll get into that, but you got a new stand-up special, Above It All, be released on social media platform Moment, October 4th. That's exciting. How'd you get hooked up with Moment?
Well, I loved what they were doing. Well, first of all, like even previous to that, I felt like with my stand-up, with my the way I like to collaborate with my audience, and kind of the way I've always done it, all the way from MySpace up, is I don't like a lot of middlemen with content. There's always like people that want to edit things out or take certain things away, and then the show that's presenting, you're like, that's not quite my version of how I wanted to be presented. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do it independently, so I self-financed the whole special.
Oh, wow.
I got my director that I've worked with on Vicious Circle and Isolated Incident, Marty Kullner, one of the best ever. And then I told Marty, I said, I want to do this direct to fans. And then Moment had its moment. They just had an incredible time with Andrew Schultz, who put out his thing independently. And it's really kind of the new template, I think, of owning your own IP and carving out your own path so that you don't have to deal with a lot of middlemen.
Totally. I mean, that's kind of what it is right now. I mean, you can put out whatever content you want and shape it however you want, produce it. And, if you're big enough and you're good enough, people are going to watch it, which you are.
Yeah. And the other thing too, is if if it's delivered in that way that you're like, oh, this is how I meant it to be, received at a nightclub or at a theater,
Yeah.
then most likely if that's been getting the laughs, you just want to capture that and air that. And then sometimes you'll go to like, I'm not going to name names, but you'll go to some streamers and they'll be like, okay, you know what? We're going to change one thing. And you're like, all right, we're going to put you in front of a yellow curtain. And you're like, aesthetically already, you're taking my fans out of it because they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
So, self-financed it, shot it at my house up here in the Hollywood Hills.
Oh, wow.
And it looks beautiful. I think it's aesthetically the best thing I've ever put together.
Wow.
And it's damn funny, which is why we're here.
Absolutely. How'd you come up with the title?
It was like a twofer. It was like, okay, so above it all is where I'm at, just the view from what we're looking at all these years in LA, came from down there, had some, funky apartments that I lived in over the years where I'd be looking up at the hills going, man, I hope I can, put a little scratch together and have a nice view someday. Cause my view right now is a dumpster. But finally, when I put the title together, it was like not only above it all, but in my life of 31 years, both as a professional comedian and just as a person who is remaining introspective and wanting to, be curious and learn, I just try to stay above negativity, man. I'm all about like trying to stay above it all. And trust me, there's a lot of things and people nipping at your heels when you've got a little bit of success going,
Yeah, no, I totally get that. So you grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Born in Cambridge, raised in Arlington. Yeah.
Arlington. Were you always funny? Were you always kind of like, telling jokes, class clown, making people laugh?
No. I mean, I was definitely more like of an introvert. I was the kid in school that like later on when I made it, people would write me and be like, where was this person? You were like the wallflower. But when I would get home to entertain my family, I was just like, dude, I was like a whirling dervish, man. I get home and skits and music playing and routines, coming up with material since I was in like 7th or 8th grade.
Oh, really?
Thinking I wanted to do stand up. So yeah, when I got home, I was caught up.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, so I grew up with in the house that we lived in, 2 sisters and an older brother.
Oh, wow. So you full house then. A lot of you had an audience at that point.
Yeah, I mean, more than anyone, it was my mom. My mom was really just like, I think she also wanted to see me overcome the anxiety that I had as a kid. And so telling her, oh, I'm going to go in front of thousands of people and make them laugh, when she knew that I had problems, like even like walking out the front door for school, I was getting like worked up and having, anxious moments. She was like my first champion. So she was also the first person I would bomb in front of as well. So she'd be like, honey, don't do that.
That's an awful one.
Yeah, that's an awful one.
So when you got in with high school, like what happened then? Were you writing comedy? Were you doing small shows at that point or no?
I was doing like, I was working a few gigs. I was working at like a video rental place, like a Blockbuster type place.
Oh,
I was
Blockbuster! I remember those.
I was just doing anything I could to not go to college and put together at least a year of giving stand-up a try financially. You know what I mean? Trying to see if I could hit some open mics and do all that shit. But during high school, a couple of plays. I did I was like a song and dance man. I was wearing like bedazzled hat and doing that whole thing. I was not a sports guy. It sucked too because my dad was a BC college graduate. He was a boxer, football player. He still has records at Boston College for like most consecutive free throws in basketball. I'm his only son. And I'm like the exact opposite of anything athletic wise that he brought. I was like in, West Side Story and wearing tights and shit.
Were you not athletic or were you just not interested in it?
I was, but I was like beta at that time. I grew into alpha, but at that time, man, I didn't have I was not the guy in the huddle that was coming up with an alternative plan. I was the guy that if I was on the sidelines, I was trying to convince the coach why the guy next to me should probably go in and play the next play. I'm not even kidding. I was intimidated.
Really? Well, I mean, it's crazy. But then you were still like getting up on stage in front of, random people and trying to make them laugh, which I think is one of the hardest jobs out there. It's hard to make people laugh. It's hard to be authentically funny.
it was tricky. It was definitely like a puzzle that I was interested in continuing to lean into. But to put it simply, nothing felt even if I had a bad show, a bad set, nothing felt as bad as how I felt just in my regular life thinking, man, am I an insignificant person? But when I go on stage, even if I'm not doing great,
Sure.
there's something significant about me in that moment. And I was like, I don't want to give up on that.
Wow. When did you leave? When did you leave Arlington then?
I did the Boston comedy scene for about 3.5 years. I was in a
Oh my
comedy
gosh.
group, like improv and all
Anybody
that kind
else
of
make
fun
it?
stuff.
Anybody else make it out of that group?
Out of that group, I got one buddy who now lives in Australia. He's a comedian down there, does very well. And then Bobby Kelly, who's an incredible East Coast guy. So everybody's kind of found their spot and continues to do it. I went from Boston to New York City after about 3 or 4 years. Bill Burr drove me to my first apartment in
Really?
New York City, his little red pickup truck when he was still a dental assistant, kind of sort of doing stand up. Me and Burr were like, humping around in fucking, little shitbox cars from
It's
gig to gig.
amazing.
And
It's amazing that small circle of like comedians that like find each other and have obviously kind of taken over the comedian world the last 20 years.
man, it
What
was
year
fun.
was that?
It was great. That was like 94. We both started together in Boston right around 90, 91. And then there was a good little group of us, man. We were just doing stand up all over the place and trying to figure out how do we win this thing.
And then you went to New
I
York.
think
And how long were you in New York for?
I did New York for a couple of years. New York was brutal because that's kind of where, as a comic, you trim the fat. Everything you think you know as a comedian, everything that you tout about yourself, really, that stuff doesn't fly. You get to New York City, it's like that scene just comes down on you, but it also validates you. If New York passes you, you might have a career. If New York doesn't pass you, you're gonna probably just head home and be doing local fairs for the rest of your life.
How are you? I mean, you don't have that much life experience at that age. Like, how are you coming up with stuff? I mean, obviously now you're older. You've been through ups and downs, and I mean, it's probably a little bit. I mean, I don't know if it's easier to come up with stuff, but at that age, you're just. I mean, are you just spitballing things against the wall, or just did it come naturally to you? Was it hard?
I was starting to figure out, like, about 4 years in, because I was doing a lot of colleges, obviously a lot of schools around
Sure.
New England, and I was dialed into the idea that, okay, I'm not trying to win over a previous generation of comedy fans. I'm coming up with the new generation of comedy
Okay.
fans.
Smart.
So I just looked at it as like, I'm going to speak. I'm in my 20s. I'm going to talk like a person's experience in my 20s.
Yeah.
Partying, sex,
Yep. Yep.
that, pretty much that. That was a lot of the act. And then once I hit 30, I started doing things that were a little bit more like, maybe I talked a little bit about my mom's fight with cancer and trying to find some ways to, let people in, but at the same time, how do you observe and report, but still remain introspective and keep your integrity and personal ideas in play? That was,
It's hard.
the way, yeah, it was hard, but it was the most gratifying thing to be able to share those moments and make humor from them.
Guys, it's no secret that women love beards and we love growing them, or trying to at least. But having a great looking beard requires work, and it feels like there's a small army of products you need to get it looking right. Luckily, Beard Club has your back. Well, your face. Beard Club sent me that PT45 trimmer, and it's just incredible, and it feels better than any other trimmer I've used. It's sturdy as hell and has amazing battery life, but it's way more than just a trimmer. Beard Club delivers pretty much everything you need for a thicker and fuller looking beard. And yeah, we don't all need the same thing, so Beard Club isn't a one-size-fits-all type of company. Head to beardclub.com/uncut, take the beard quiz, and they'll recommend a grooming kit that's tailored to you. We don't all have that James Harden beard, but actually he's one of the investors in Beard Club. So why not use the same stuff the beard uses? Grow your best beard today and take 20% off your first order when you go to beardclub.com/uncut and use code UNCUT. That's beardclub.com/uncut, code UNCUT for 20% off your first order. So, I mean, late 90s, early 2000s, like that's when things started really taking off. Were you still in New York or were you out in LA?
I came out to this is kind of funny, man. This is like weird the way serendipity and the way things work. I was doing a comedy competition in '97 up in San Francisco, and this producer from Hollywood, I'd never been.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm a producer from Hollywood. You hear that, and right away you're like, okay, wait a minute. Am I about to be drugged and like trafficked? Okay. He goes, I'm doing a show down in LA,
Yeah.
and he goes, we need some energy. Have you done some acting? I told him I did like a little stage stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, come down and meet with us. And I ended up on a TV show as Betty White's grandson for a year.
What was the show called?
It was called Canceled after a year. No, it's called Maybe This Time. It was like a Saturday night show. Nobody watched it. It was me, Betty White, and Marie Osmond played my mother.
And that's a hell of a cast.
Dude, it was. I'm not gonna lie. It was, and Craig Ferguson was worked at the coffee shop that it was set in.
Damn.
But I stayed in LA for that year. I thought like, oh wow, I'm a big TV star now. And then another Burr. I'll tell you another. Let me wrap it up with another Burr moment. But that show got canceled, and then Burr was on a show with Molly Ringwald. He got cast in the same year in a show called Townies, and that show got canceled. And we were at the gym, I remember about a month after everything just fell apart. And we're next to each other and we're doing crunches. And after about 50 crunches, I just turned to Burr and I go, hey. And he stopped and I go, we're already both failed TV actors. And we just laughed and thought, all right, this is the end. Now we go home and just, sling jokes locally. But it worked out for us.
TV show ends. I mean, how? And then did you get into the comedy scene in LA then?
Yeah, so what happened was this. I was doing local comedy just as I was doing that TV show.
Sure.
And I realized that the New York comedy scene was a bunch of Turks coming up, like alpha competitive, like Turks. And yet the LA scene was a lot of comics that were still kind of in their showcase era from the 80s into the 90s. And I was the only like young blood in town.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could either go back to New York and compete with everybody for stage time, or I could pretty much stay here and just bring like all the local colleges to my gig here. So when I saw that working, I was like, all right, I'm going to stay here for a minute.
And then it just went meteor through the roof.
Well, not really right away, because you know what happened was I really thought, so the show gets canceled, and then I'm just doing local comedy, and like nobody at that point wants me. HBO's not calling. The places that you're hoping are gonna, see some value in you, like nobody. There was really nothing except like, oh, good show, but no follow up. And then I realized the only way I was ever going to break in or break down that door was to have my own data and analytics, and I did that through MySpace, which was
you were one of the first ones to ever make their own. I mean, and then you did MySpace, and then you did DaneCook.com. DaneCook.com.
Yeah, I threw it all together, man. Jay, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to see 23 hours of the day a comic has nothing to do, and you're waiting for that gig at night if you even have one. So
did you fund that? Did you fund the whole DaneCook.com?
I did, yeah. Everything I had was $35,000 at that moment in my life in '99, and I put it all into a website to have like a proper.
No one else was doing it, right?
No, but I knew I needed like a hub. I needed like that central place for fans to see content and be able to get in touch with me. But when I was on MySpace and I saw the first like few hundred fans turn into like doubling that number within a week doing these college gigs, I remember I was dating this girl at the time, and she came into my office late at night, and she goes, "What are you doing in here?" And I literally was like, "Listen, see this page?" She goes, "Yeah." I go, "I'm building an army."
Yeah.
And she was like, "What?" She's like, "This is just like some very, tacky looking social media page." And I was like, I hit refresh. I saw 10 more people follow me. I was like, nobody realizes what I'm about to do here. Yeah. So I had a blast. It was a lot of fun.
It's genius. You were ahead of the curve on that. Obviously now like we deal with Instagram and Twitter and everything else, and like that's the premise of it. But you're doing this in early 2000s on fucking MySpace.
It was good though, because it was like the Wild West, and it wasn't as corporate, because now there's algorithms and there's like it's all corporate owned. Back then, man, it was like everything was very willy nilly. It was like the internet, I think, for a good 3 or 4 year period, it was just like a bastion of hope and
Yeah,
positivity.
it was pure. It was
Then
pure.
one person came into a comment section one day and was like, "Fuck you," and then everybody else, "Oh, I didn't know I could do that too." You started getting heckled in the comment section at that point.
And
But
that was the end. That
in
was the
all
end of the
reality,
internet.
man, I saw that. I saw in that moment that for the rest of my career, it was only ever going to be about. I mean, the industry comes in and out of your life, and if you're zeitgeisting, then they're going to want a piece of it. But I tell all people that I mentor, and especially a lot of young comics, I say, just get so good that you're undeniable,
Yeah.
and then everything else will work out. Be undeniable. And don't worry so much about a deal or who's gonna think you're undeniable someday. Nobody knows your passion like you do, so you just create your own lane.
And I mean, that's what you did. I mean, 2003, Harmful of Swallowed, certified platinum. I mean, were you like, hey, I made it now? Like, were you like, hey, I got to follow this up? Were you shocked that it went that high?
Yeah, it was all those things, but there was just there was still that kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
That kid, that the wallflower that couldn't even fathom that I did it, that I really made
Yeah.
something of myself. And there's a good chunk of that moment where I really just basked in it, and then you start to realize like I have to follow up, and
Yeah.
now I have to maintain. Once you're in the game,
Yeah.
now you got to show people like once you're
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
then it's a whole different sport.
Yep. Then you got to keep it up. You got to stay at that level, or I mean, if you dip down, they're gonna absolutely crush you.
Yeah, somebody once was like, "You ever read The Power Now?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I go, "But then once you get in, it's the power of no, right fucking now, right
Yes.
fucking now, be
Yeah.
ready now, not like prepare for now.
Yeah.
You better be ready. Go time is right this second."
Exactly. You better be funny 24/7. But I mean, you did. I mean, 2005 Retaliation, double platinum. First comic in 27 years, have an album top 5 of Billboard charts.
Yeah,
I mean, went back round 2 and just doubled it up.
I had to. It was like, okay, I know everybody's thinking like, all right, this is a fluke.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I got after the first one. It's like, oh, he just clicked some buttons on a website and people bought it. I had to let people know at that moment that, I mean, honestly, I had to let people understand that no, I'm the comic of this generation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming up with a few people that I came out of New York with Chappelle.
Yep.
I came behind Rock, so I was always on shows,
Mm-hmm.
getting bumped by Rock when he would come into the cellar in New York, and I was surrounded by greatness that was also elevating, and I was like, I'm not here for halfway. I'm here to show people that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I'm always intrigued how you guys come up with your stuff. Like, did you have some guys or some people around you that were kind of helping you write, kind of throwing things off people? I mean, did you have a group, or was it just like you doing it,
It's kind of
swimming, talking about your life? I mean, it's always intriguing to me.
it's like the way that most comics do it, and this is the way I subscribe to, is like you work on your shit that's like personal. It's
Mm-hmm.
all observe and report. Something
Sure.
happens to you, you get pulled over by a cop, and you're like, all right, here's my take on it. And then your close, like your road dog friends will come to you, that the Bill Burrs and Patrice O'Neills or
Uh huh.
Gary Oldman, whoever we were coming up with, and you'll give each other a little bit of like, hey, the reality is that needs some work, or that sucked, or oh, that one part that's funny.
Uh,
Build it off of that. So you kind of go with that, but you don't listen to the noise too far out, because there's a lot of saboteurs in the comedy industry as well, and
oh
they don't
yeah.
want to see you get too far ahead of the pack.
Uh huh. Uh huh. Uh huh.
Yeah,
Uh huh. Yeah, I mean, I
yeah, yeah,
guess you got to have that group of people that are brutally honest with you and be like, hey, like this is good, this sucks, kick this one down the road.
Well, when you have like a web page though that people can write you, trust me, your fans will be like, I've seen you be funny 3 times. What the hell was that thing that I saw the other night? And I would have to write people back and be like, I'm glad that you even checked in. I was trying some new stuff, and
Yeah.
maybe I, pushed the limits a little bit too far. So it was all par for the course, because ultimately when that second album came out, I knew that I just had to keep my head on straight, because I had at least received that embrace from the industry of like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you're legit, man. You put yourself in here.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you were using the internet, you were using, I mean, social media. I mean, you were literally hitting it on all cylinders. What was the biggest bomb that you had early on? Where you're like, shit, maybe was there ever a time like, hey, this isn't for me. Maybe I need something else. I need to figure out something
I
else.
mean, I made some real, like, some stinker movies that to this day, if I turn on my TV at 2 a.m. and I'm flipping through the channels, there's some bad movies.
Don't say employee of the month because I love that movie.
I feel like that one. No, I like that one too.
That's a good one.
No, there were some turds. I mean, there's some. Luckily, I never put out an album or a special that I didn't think was like, ready to go. But yeah, definitely a lot of movies that's out of your. You make a movie, you show up, they put makeup all over you, they make you look pretty, they put you next to somebody who's talented and they're lovely, and you just like every day you're just at craft service and you're eating snacks and you're just having a blast, and then you go away and a year later you sit and watch it and go, what is this? You put your whole life in the hands of somebody else's vision. It's fun. It's always, to me, I love doing films, especially dramatic pieces, because it's cool to be a little piece of a puzzle of a story. It's so different from stand-up that's, all you. It's a little lonely stand-up sometimes. So you like it, but you also know you're at the liberty of the editing and the directing and a lot of other people that have nothing to do with your personal perspective.
For sure, for sure. Uncut with Jay Cutler is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be a little overwhelming. Like when your favorite podcast is playing and the person next to you is talking and your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try, and you might just find getting the rate and coverage you deserve is easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies all lined up and ready to compare, so it's simple to choose the rate and coverages you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote at Progressive.com to join the over 27 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. So, through the 2000s, you were one of the only, you and Andrew Dice Clay, you both sold out Madison Square Garden. You were doing movies, releasing albums. Wild wave of success in a compact amount of time.
Yeah, it was really, it was never an overnight thing. It was definitely that long trajectory. What's that quote? Like, it took me 17 years to become an overnight success. It was that kind of thing. But once I was finally in it and building my brand and building my company out and realizing beyond just the jokes of the nightly stand-up routine, I found that part of the industry more gratifying. And now, as a person who likes to direct and write and produce, I get that jolt from so many different avenues of creativity, not just the stand-up.
Yes. So, is that what you kind of did? You kind of got out of solely stand-up and just being creative in different avenues? Did you get burned out by
Jay,
it?
I wouldn't say I was burned out. I'm 50 and I'm up till 2 a.m. I'm like, I don't burn out.
You look like you're 35.
Dude, my fiance is like, how do you do it? I'm like, I honestly have such love of the game that it keeps me. I'm always interested and excited about whatever's next. But I wouldn't say burnt out as much as it was like I'd had my moment. I was like the belle of the ball for a good 8-year run.
Sure.
And as I saw that starting to become, all right, there's a new comic, there's new, the Kevin Hart's coming up the ranks or whoever or Burr. I realized, okay, this is not a mantle I have to like protect. I'm not fighting for this. I get to have this as well as other people that are going to enjoy what I, had the opportunity to have that spotlight. So I just looked at it as like, took a little break, did some great therapy, got in touch with myself, worked through some troubles that I'd gone through in my life. And then when I was ready to bring it back to stand up with Isolated Incident, which kind of like was really keyed into what I was dealing with in my life at that time.
Yeah. It's like you said, like it's really hard to sustain that that mantle and that for 20, 25, 30 years. I mean, there's so many talented people, in your industry that there's going to be ebbs and flows, and there's going to be some things that happen.
Well, the ebb makes the flow more interesting.
Sure.
It's like if you don't crash and burn and have some, low watermark moments, it's kind of weird. It's like those actually not only inform your next success or endeavor, they make it more interesting. They make people root for you more. They make they make the whole ride even more valuable because you're like, oh wow, I'm more empathetic. I'm more compassionate. I'm more grateful, and then that shines through hopefully in whatever you're putting out there to the people.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Seems like the little break and stuff, like you learned some things and you've got some new stuff. And like you said, your fiance recently engaged. Congratulations.
Thanks, bud. Yeah, thanks, man. I'm very happy.
We got a wedding date.
We're looking at next fall. We're
Okay.
just enjoying this right now. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no rush. Does do you test your new stuff out on her? Does she think you're funny?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, she's a cut up too. So we laugh a lot.
I
But
love it.
she comes down to the clubs all the time. She'll see me working out new stuff,
Mhm.
and I know if something's really working because she'll give me that nudge at the end of the night when we're walking out of the club,
Yeah,
and she'll say that thing that you did tonight about the whatever it might be. I'm
sure.
like, yeah, and she's like, baby,
That's the one.
that's gold. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where'd y'all
She knows
meet?
because I've been with girls over the years that
Yeah.
the worst joke of the night for me in my head, they'd be
Uh-huh.
like, I like that thing that you did, and I'd be like, yeah, that sucks.
You're not the one for me then. Kick them down the street. Next up, please. Where'd you guys meet?
We met in LA. I used to, for a couple of year run, we had a game night where people would come over and we would do like code names or running charades or
Mm-hmm.
mafia.
Mm-hmm.
And I just met her there. We were buds for a little bit, and then it's cheesy. I won't make it too
Sure.
maudlin, but it's like it like blossomed naturally over
Yeah.
like a period of time.
That's the best way to do it, I think.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Worked out for you anyway. So what else you got going on? We're swimming. We got new stuff coming out. Anything else cool happening?
Yeah, man. So the special above it all.
Yep.
Once that drops, what we're going to do? Well, first of all, we're having a big premiere at Man's Chinese Theater.
Oh, wow.
It's the first stand-up special to ever premiere at that historic venue. So I'm super proud that I finally get to see it with another large audience in that spot. And then after that, I started basically a documentary about my life and comedy career,
Oh, wow.
but really focusing on the whole middle part where I went through this experience of having to put my brother in prison.
I did not know that.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, you'll see that when the documentary
Yeah.
comes out, you're
Yeah.
gonna see some gnarly shit, man. I went through some really some undertow moments, and so
I'm
I wanted
sure.
to do a documentary with this group of great producers that approached me and said, "Why don't we do something? We key in on all the crazy shit that happened when you were putting your brother in jail." And I was like, "That sounds interesting to me. That's like comedy and tragedy all in one. I love it."
Yeah, that sounds. When's that going to be out?
We're gonna start it actually. We're filming it in a couple of weeks, and then we'll
Okay.
go through. I'm assuming next fall it'll
Yeah.
probably be polished up and ready. So,
So you're busy
and
as
then I'm
hell.
trying to get a TV show made that I've been writing for the last couple of years.
What's it about?
It's kind of like a pulp fiction set in Vegas. It's
Okay.
about a couple of very, very nasty hitmen
Awesome.
that get embroiled in something. Yeah, man. It's kind of like one of those stories that I've been wanting to tell for about 10 years. So
Uh-huh.
I got a little bit of scratch. I got some
Yeah.
financiers who got behind it. They like
Yeah.
it. And so I'll see if I can direct this TV show and star in it maybe sometime in the spring.
You got it. You're busy.
I like to be busy, man. I
You
like
are.
it. Yeah.
You're busy. You got a lot of things going on. Gonna get married. TV shows, documentaries, new comedy stuff. This is awesome. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you.
Man, I appreciate that. I love it. I love what I do. I like to stay busy, and I wanted to make something for the fans. I wanted to make something that when people watch it, they felt like this was truly everything that I could put from 31 years of doing what I've been doing into one show. So I really hope people enjoy it and have a lot of laughs with it.
Oh, I think they will. You've been one of the best for a long time. I've been a big fan. Above It All premieres October 4th on social media platform Moment. Look for Dane. He's got a bunch of new stuff coming out, documentary, TV show, and of course his new comedy special. So I appreciate you taking the time, man. I know you're busy, obviously.
I'm going to go invest in a new webcam, Jay, right now.
Brandon can send you some on Amazon, probably. Just 2 clicks away.
Hey, man, I really appreciate you having me, and I've enjoyed the podcast.
I
Continued
appreciate
success.
it. Thanks for the time.
Got it.
See you, bud.